Welcome to Artflakes from CBATV, the only show where you can get to know about things beyond your boundary, things even within your boundary that you don't know about. And today, we will be discussing about things that goes on outside even East Africa, not even Somali context, that is West Africa. And not even Anglophone African country, but Francophone African country. Which country is that? Senegal. See you on the other part of the studio where we'll discuss about who we are going to be discussing about today. Welcome back, dear viewers. As usual today, I have my regular guest, Abubakar Isaka Ubaji. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me once again.
Yeah, as I've told you on the other side of the studio, we will be looking at the word, the literary word within a soul. And as I've told you, we will be dealing with SEMBENE Ousmane. Who is this man? How far has he gone when it comes to the literary word? What is his worldview? These are some of the questions that our guest will be talking about. So let's go into the background of this very important writer, SEMBENE Ousmane. Who is SEMBENE Ousmane?
SEMBENE Ousmane is a popular African writer, and what is well known for his impact in the movie industry and filmmaking, and in fact he is known today as the father of African films. He started writing during the French colonial days, where he wrote some books and of a Marxist orientation, and he was one of the writers that actually influenced Ngo, who was also a fellow Marxist like himself. But SEMBENE Ousmane is not just one thing, it's many things in one person. You find him in the movie making industry, and you also find him in the aspect of writing. So his impact, although much felt in movie, is also of much relevance in the African writing scenario. So he has several novels to himself. He was born in Dakar in Senegal in 1923, January 1st. And after he has written some novels, I think his novel spans the colonialism down to post-colonial period. Okay. So he had God's Bit of Wood, which was is perhaps the most popular text of his. Then it's Marxist, that book is a Marxist feminist work. Then apart from that, he also has Le Doka Noe, that's the Black Doka, written about his experiences abroad when he actually hid himself on a ship as a stowaway and traveled abroad to work. So his experiences there and the protests by workers there were what formed the content of that book. Then also the book we're discussing today, XALA, which is about the impotence. It's about impotence, but the impotence becomes a metaphor for the African the young African political elite who took over the reins of government from the colonial masters.
So what is his influence in his own home? Because every writer writes not in vacuum. They have something that must have triggered their writing. What are some of the things that we can generally see that reflect in the content of his work, particularly that has to do with his own people?
Yeah, speaking
as a Marxist.
Speaking of, if you look at it from the colonial angle, from when he began writing the colonial days, he tried to depict the colonial experience, and he was using his work to chastise the French colonial system, which was bent on a continual rule of the African society. The God's Bit of Wood actually chronicles a particular protest that happened in the period within spans the Senegal down to Mali, and the protest was ongoing against the French colonial system. And it tried to depict the role of women in the society, as well as the role of men I remember a character called Bakayoko in the novel, and the role which also a prostitute play to affect the change in the society. So in his novel, he depicts ordinary men trying to affect a change in their society by being active participants in a revolution.
That's the pre.
Yes, and you know that's colonial period. So the protest then led to what we came to later have as the independence era, because you know with those protests came a voice for independence being declared. Initially, it did not start as a call for independence; it started as a protest against oppression of the French colonial system. But with time, when the oppression went on and the people continued protesting, it came to a point they had to say enough is enough. I think it's time you guys just leave us and let us do our thing ourselves. You know, but you know the amazing thing, however, is that the writers and the politicians worked as one entity to effect a change in the African society. But after independence was attained and the country was freed and the African elite became the rulers, it became a change of buttons. You know, the African elite became the new rulers of the society. They took over the oppressive rules that the French system perpetrated in the colonial era. Not only the French government, the British government, and the Italian government, all the government that were involved in colonizing the partitioning of Africa. So our brothers who were our fellow Africans took over the reins of government, and they perpetrated the same injustice. And
dogs eating dogs.
Yeah, dogs eating dogs. And with that, Africans are one people that African writers are people that they can't watch injustice continue unabated. So they had to, at that point, there had to be a dividing point. There had to be a segregation between the writer and the politician. You know, at the initial period, even some politicians were known as poets, as writers. You remember Kwame Nkrumah, Nnamdi Azikiwe was also a poet. We had them like that, even down to Leopold Sedar Senghor, the former president of this thing. So, but you see, when the writers saw that themselves and the politicians did not have the same agenda, they saw that the politicians were more of eating to their fill, while the poets were more of fighting for the oppressed, looking for a better life for the people. So there had to be that separation. Each person had to go his own way. And you know, even Chinua Achebe at once in Nigeria made a sojourn into the world of politics. But when he saw that it was a dirty game, he had to pull out and said, yes, you guys can go your way and we can also go our way. You know, at that time when the whole thing was, the agitation for independence was coming, we felt that yes, with independence everything was going to be good. The African man was going to gain finally a full independence. It would be a life of bliss, fecundity, and enjoyment. But then, even Kwame Nkrumah said, "Seek ye first the political kingdom, and all other things shall be yours." And yes, we sought the political kingdom, but all other things did not come. That was the bane of the writer. The writer saw that the politicians renegated on the promise they made, or the vow they made to free the people from poverty or oppression that the colonial system was perpetrating. So it was much more the same story. And then came the period of disillusionment, which came to characterize post-colonial African literature. You know, if you check the trend of most work, you check from even Ngugi. Let's talk about even from Chinua Achebe. You see, Chinua Achebe wrote Things Fall Apart. Then it's as if colonialism was the problem. Remove colonialism, and every other thing would fall into place. Then followed by Arrow of God. Still, we're talking about culture clash, colonialism. Then but when you get to a man of the people, and before that there was No Longer at Ease. When you get to No Longer at Ease, you discover that moment when the writer had to change his orientation. Then he knew that it was not just an issue of colonialism; it was we ourselves.
Imperialism.
Apart from
because that's indirect control. After the colonialism,
imperialism, and the Africans themselves were so corrupt that they cannot
self-exploitation.
They cannot rule themselves. So you look at that trend that from Chinua Achebe was a pre-colonial writer, colonial writer, and
neo-colonial writer,
post-colonial writer. But in all these phases now, you see that when he wrote a man of the people, no longer at ease, you find that feeling of disillusionment in that work. Now, looking at even Ngugi wa Thiong'o, you look at his work first. That was Weep Not Child, A River Between.
Yeah.
Those work express cover pre-colonial and colonial period, and in even down to A Grain of Wheat, there was that expression of hope that things were going to change once it was African ruling Africans. But things never change, and we see that feeling of disillusionment in the post-colonial works of Ngugi wa Thiong'o. You find Petals of Wheat, Devil on the Cross, and even of recent Wizard of the Crow, which was discussed here the last time. So now, having looked at that, the same thing happens with Sembene Ousmane. In God's Bit of Wood, you find that feeling of hope. There's that optimistic feeling that pervades the story that he tells. But when you move further and you now read the one we're talking about now, XALA, you find out that in that book he has become disillusioned. There is that feeling of, even would I put it as hatred for the political class or elite, the business class, who rose on the back of of independence. When independence came in and Africans were occupying positions left vacant by the white imperialists, some people used that opportunity and put themselves were gallivanting in the corridors of power. So they saw the opportunity for themselves and used it to oppress others, and that is what we see.
All right, let's now go deeply into the plot development of this very important story, which is XALA. What is this story all about?
Yeah, it's in one word, XALA means impotency, right? Being impotent, and it's actually a comical novel, although the English version did not represent the comical aspect, but then. Still the message is passed, and it is quite deep, because even while laughing at iniquities of the political class or their shortcomings, you also get to see a reflection of yourself and your society in that work. So in the story we meet the protagonist Haji El Abu Ade. Now, Haji El Abu Ade is a businessman who formerly was a teacher, like the Chief Nanga of Chinua Achebe is a man of the people. So Haji Abu Ade is a businessman in the story, and he became a businessman immediately after the French colonial system was leaving, and some businessmen needed to represent their interests in the country, so they used him as a stooge to cover the business. So the business had a black face, but was controlled but it was like a puppet being controlled from the hands of a white man. So it was much more like the business could even be a representation of the African government, which is also controlled by the colonialists. Still, there's that system of imperialism still working. And I think of recent, it was in the news that France is still collecting taxes from some 14 African countries, former colonies of.
Perhaps it will change after this ECHO, because ECHO will be implemented by 2020, and. There's possibility of having that tax reduced, because they're no longer going to be going there to print their currencies. All the currencies they're using server in all Francophone African countries up to today. So they have to pay the tax to them.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, and it's quite exploitative. So, but that is beside the fact. Now, in this story now, Haji El Abu Ade is a popular businessman. He owns a business complex, and his business was flourishing until he decides to take a new wife. Even at his old age, already has 2 of them, but he decides to go for another one, a younger, beautiful wife. And that is with African elite. They get rich, they decide that the next thing is to take another wife to show their prowess. Yeah. So he goes for another wife, and on the day of consummating his marriage, he discovered that he's impotent. He cannot consummate his marriage. So it would be a shame to him if he comes out and he cannot consummate his marriage, and it will look somehow. So everybody became worried, himself became worried. He had to look for means to cure himself from at first he suspected his wife, but still he discovered that his wives were not the problem. So his driver finally found a solution for him, took him to a marabout who assisted him to heal. And when he became viral, he came back and wanted to try. He did what he could. At that time, he was already disillusioned with the marriage. He didn't want to go on because it had put him through much pain, and he had spent a fortune to cure himself of that illness, and he had not much money. And even the money that he paid the marabout, at the time he was signing the check, the money was not in the bank. So this infuriated the marabout, who later visited him in the office in disguise and rendered him impotent again. So he had that problem, and then at the point he became impotent again, his business was crumbled. He has been butchered out of the chamber of commerce of his country, and also there was nobody to assist him. So at the end of the day now, the only place he could go for a cure is a beggar he had despised, who sits outside his office every day singing and begging for money. So the noise of the beggar is an irritant to his ears, and he doesn't want it. At a point in time, he had to engage the police to move the beggar away from there. But after the beggar was released, the beggar returned to the same place. But fascinatingly, the beggar's voice appealed to the ears of his bride, the father of his bride-to-be, who's Ngone, and his driver. The driver also loved listening to the beggar's song. So there is that idea that the beggar represents the oppressed class, and the oppressed class can actually sympathize with each other, but the upper class would never see anything good in the lower class. And that is the idea being passed across with the beggar and Aji Abu Adair.
Okay.
So now with the whole thing that was happening, the end result was, if you want to get a cure for yourself, what you need to do is you must get naked, then all the beggars will spit on you. They will pour their saliva on him. It was a disgrace. It was a disgraceful thing for a man of his standing in the society, for a man as famous as he is, as wealthy as he was, or with the kind of stance he had in society, to be subjected to such treatment. But at the end of the day, he needed a cure because he could not go on being impotent. And then we come to discover that the beggar placed the impotency on him, because he at one time took the land that belonged to the beggar and his clan. And when he stole the land from them, he forged the signatures of the chiefs of that clan, and sold the land to his white associates. So, and when the beggars and these people protested, he used the police to arrest them. That was far back before then. So the beggars spent years in prison. So when he came back for revenge, and he decided to start begging right outside the office of the man who had put him in the predicament he is then. So, and that was how he had his way to lace the man with the disease of impotency. So at the end of the day, Abu Ada did not have any other option than to submit to the will of the beggar. And at the end of the day, all the beggars of the town came to his house, both with the crippled one. It was, the way it was described in the novel, it was an eyesore. And they gathered in his house and poured their saliva on him for him to receive his cure. That was the end of the novel. So it ended in humiliation for the protagonist, who was at first, he was on a high level of the society, but he was dropped down to nothing and made to look like like a disease himself. So
this is a very, it's a mixture of a pastoral novel. You can learn a lesson from this. Your past will surely haunt you.
Yes, exactly.
Whatever you do,
be always be waiting for the result.
That whether you do good or bad, you're going to get it one day.
Definitely.
Let's look at some of the themes of this very important novel. I want to start with the supernatural power, African supernatural power.
Yeah.
So let's look at how has the writer been able to use this to come up with resolution. You know, when we write story, we have the trend of the story writing. And to get to a resolution, you have the climax, you get to anti-climax, and you must come up with a resolution anyhow. How has he been able to use that as a tool?
I think the first time I see that the entrance of the beggar, or the revelation that the beggar who has been outside had a clash with him, and was the one that laced the man with the disease of XALA. So that is what in literally what we call it Deus ex machina, right? So we see that and a sudden intervention to bring a resolution to the story. But when you look at the aspect of the supernatural, you see it is founded in the belief of Africans. And you know, when there's somebody you cannot fight physically because he has the power of the law with him.
I love that. There's something that if there's something you cannot fight, if you can't fight someone physically, you have to go supernatural. So before we go to this in detail, I want us to go for a break. When we come back, I'm sure you enjoy it.
Welcome to QETC Qalam Educational and Technical Center.
I am Mohammed Ahmed. I am a student of Qalam Educational and Technical Center.
Qalam Educational and Technical Center is a place that you can improve your English language.
I came with zero English. Now I'm better.
Come to Qalam Educational and Technical Center. This will help you to improve your English, your listening, your speaking, your writing and reading.
If you want to speak confidently without fearing, come and join Qalam and learn how to speak in front of thousand people without fear.
Welcome back to Artflakes. Today, if you are watching us for the first time, we're discussing about SEMBENE Ousmane. SEMBENE Ousmane is a Senegalese writer and filmmaker. And we've discussed about, we are focusing on XALA, one of his write-ups, which has shown that there is life beyond the life that we live. And there are tools that you can use to change things. If you don't have physical power, you can have power beyond the power. So this is what we're discussing about. Now we're looking at the effect of voodoo on the theme or the trend of the story itself. How has the writer been able to have this? And our guest today has just mentioned something that supernatural power can be used to make a change when you don't have the physical power to make a change. So from there, let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I think when the beggar saw that the beggar who was always begging in front of others' business center felt that he does not have the physical will to combat the man. He had to go the supernatural way to punish him and make him realize his sin. But apart from that, I feel it is God wanting to punish the Aj himself for being unjust to the poor in the society, the underprivileged. And you know, surprisingly, after going here and there, he had to come to the same man he had oppressed for years and has subjected to the poverty and the predicament the man was. He turned the young man into a beggar because by the time the man left the jail, he had become too old to work for himself. He had lost a vital part of his youth after being arrested because he was protesting for his own land. So you see the injustice that is being perpetrated in the society. And apart from using the supernatural as a means to counteract the activities of the political elite or the business elite in the society, there is that idea that there is nothing you do in life that doesn't have a reward. If you do evil, you will never go unpunished. There is always a punishment somewhere for the evil things that we do in life. And that in that story, you see Aji are there receiving his punishment. Even at the end, as a reader, you come to pity him, the plight he's subjected to. But these are people who have lived in they have lived as the cream of the society. They have lived at the apogee of society. They've reached the height, the pinnacle of achievement, and it was to drop down to nothing and made to suffer for the sin he committed. So the idea of using voodoo there shows that there is always a punishment for everything that you do. There is always a punishment. So, and if you think you can do something physically and go away with it because you have the police in your pocket, you have the government as your friend, or you have whoever you have talks to fight for you, the finance to deal with anybody. There is always a recompense for everything you do. It will surely boomerang one day.
I'm just trying to look at El Hajj Abdul Qadir. The name itself has to do with destiny. Qadr means destiny in Arabic. So is there anything, theme of destiny in this XALA that's, because I'm looking at the life of this man, life of the beggars, you know, this with his name itself, how can we relate? Because sometimes writers use even the name,
Yeah, I understand.
you know,
That's true.
to drive their message to the public.
Yes, you know.
How has Zambele Osman been able to use this?
You know, the idea of name truly may sometimes even give clues about what is going on in the story, about the happenings in the story. And if you say destiny was involved in the case of Abdul Qadir, we cannot rule out that fact, because he was just a school teacher, and somehow he rose to fame and became one of the richest men in the country, and one day he just dropped down. But if we have to look at it from the Marxist angle, they try as much as possible to delete the aspect of faith there, because they believe that man is determined by economic circumstances. So if we factor in faith, then it may have an issue with the Marxist orientation, which
Zambele Osman
which is using in the book, because his own perception is that, you know, as you can see in the book, there are two classes of people. We have the upper class and the lower class. The upper class is represented by the political elite and the businessmen in the society, while the lower class includes the beggars, the family of Ngoni, and the driver is chauffeur. So you see that there is that dichotomy in the society, and with that dichotomy there is the clash of the two classes, and that clash is brought about by the confrontation between the beggar and Abdul Qadir. So that is the Marxist ideology may not have looked at fate, about destiny. It's because it considers a material aspect of the society, that is the economy. That economic situation determines
the life of
how man will progress in life.
Right.
So there is that.
Because I'm looking at the name. Haji has to do with a traveler. Abdul has to do with servant. You know.
Yeah, we can't rule out the aspect of.
Has to do with
we can't rule out the aspect of destiny from him, because his rise to fame and sudden drop appeals to us like that. That this is a man who was here one day and the next day is just down to the lowest of the low. So there is that aspect of faith still, but then I want us to look at it from the Marxist angle. That's when we can actually pinpoint the area is coming from.
So do you see the theme of capitalism in this context?
Yes, of course. There's that theme of capitalism, because you see the business society exploiting the poor in the society. Abdul Qadir goes to the bank and lends money from banks, and at the end of the day, he fails to pay back, and this money belongs to people. So at the end of the day, it's ruining the lives of other people. And you know, even the aspect of stealing somebody's land, forging signatures of the chiefs of that clan, and selling it to his colonial friends, his imperialist friends, so that they can build a business, they can build a company. And when these people protested for their right, what did he do? He got them arrested. Locked them up in jails, and wasted the youthful part of their life, rendered them useless by the time they left the prison. So they became non-entities inside, they became useless, they couldn't even function for themselves, because a man decided to steal what doesn't belong to him for himself. So that is the idea, that's the idea of capitalism. Capitalism is a business, is an economic system that preaches one man grabbing everything, while the others are there. The others that are there are being exploited by the capitalists in the society. So Abu Qadir represents the capitalist society, especially with his group of those that are in the Chamber of Commerce with him, and the other political elites too. So he represents that capitalist idea, and he also represents the oppressor in the society dealing with the oppressed, which are those of the poor, of the lower classes.
There's this another part as we were talking. I was looking at the SEMBENE OUSMANE as a Marxist, using spirituality to resolve a problem. Do you feel Marxists believe in spirituality?
No, and like I said before, the idea of spirituality.
Why bring in that in? That's my concern.
No, apart from being...
if it does not believe in destiny, why bring in spirituality to resolving the problem?
Apart from being a Marxist, you must know that SEMBENE OUSMANE is a Muslim, right? He's a born Muslim, and even when he died, it was buried as a Muslim, given proper Muslim rights. So there is, and you can't segregate a writer from the experiences that condition has been. He was born as a Muslim, so definitely there will be that reflection of his own life and experience, his background in his work. So he comes from a background that believes in the voodoo, Islam.
Do Marxists believe in spirituality? That's what I want. I want us to look at it from general perspective and then narrow it down to the life of SEMBENE OUSMANE.
The ideology doesn't appeal to spirituality.
That's where I'm
It doesn't appeal to spirituality.
Exactly where I'm
but
going.
What I'm trying to pinpoint is that you cannot remove an author from his background, even if he is speaking a foreign ideology. He is trying to contextualize it into his own environment, fix it into his own environment, and show us how this can play out. So maybe if he may have added some little fixtures that were not there before, but still there is that. Novel is evidently a Marxist one, as represented in the division of classes and the clash of classes.
Actually, you're right, because I know Senegal as a country of voodoo. They don't joke with that. They believe so much in it that even they have national wrestling competition, this wrestling, where they use voodoo openly, and it's, they believe that you cannot win without the voodoo. Yeah. Even if you have, no matter your physical strength or whatever, you must attach voodoo to it. And they pay them heavily, millions, in millions, every year.
I think
and people don't joke with that.
I've heard about such competition before. They have wrestling bouts, but I did not know that it was much. It was much into voodoo.
Deep into that. They don't joke with that. Even domestically, they use the
I've only seen the fight on YouTube once before. So I've seen them fighting. They call them warriors or so, but I do not know that this thing.
Drivers will put voodoo here, even openly in the public. They don't care about that. They just put voodoo here and they'll be driving. You see their cars, you see voodoo is in the car. The majority of them, particularly those in power, they can't get power if you don't have a spiritual backup. Those who are very strong in that part. So you can see that in his work.
This is surprising.
Actually, there's no way a writer will write without having
there's a reflection of the society, the experience that created the writer himself. So that is we see that evidently.
So what is the general message we can get from this XALA?
That is a message of punishment for evil deeds. That there is nothing you do in life that does not have a punishment. There is always a repercussion for the actions we take. And amongst Yoruba people, there is this proverb that says that the food that was cooked 20 years ago can still burn your fingers in even 20 years after. So there is that. The other proverb exists, and it's actually true about life. At certain times in life, we take decisions that we don't know may actually come to affect our future. While El Hajj Abu Kader was suffering from the disease of impotency, he would never have thought that there was an atrocity he committed many years back while he was still a very young, hot-headed person, and that atrocity was coming to haunt him so many years after. So at first when he began, he could not look past that. He believed that one of his wives were the one causing him the impotency. So but at the end of the day, we come to discover that it was a crime he had perpetrated long time in the past that had come to haunt him in his old age. So, and that is sad about life. So it means that whatever you do in life, always be sure that you are doing the good thing. And if you do the bad thing, be sure that the reward will come after. Even if you do good, the reward there's a reward for good. You either receive it here or in the afterlife.
Dear viewers, you can see that this is a very interesting story. XALA is an indirect interpretation of Man qaddama quddima, kama tajzi tujza, wa kama tadinu tudanu. These are common Arabian proverbs. Man qaddama quddima. Whatever you put forward for others, they'll put it forward for you too one day. Kama tajzi tujza. Whatever you do to people, you will also get the reward.
Definitely.
It's just like the verse of the Quran that say, Man amila soliha fali nafsi. Whoever does good acts, he does it for himself. Waman asa faliha. Whoever does the otherwise will also receive the negative side of it. So this is the lesson we need to learn.
And also a lesson to our politicians too.
A lesson to our politicians. All those in power, anywhere you find yourself.
Who oppress others, the poor in society.
No matter the condition you find it, whether you are a boss,
beggars.
A manager in an establishment, or you are just given a political office to hold, remember that those that are placed under you, you are supposed to treat them fairly. Do not oppress them, don't exploit them, because it will surely bounce back one day. This is why you see some politicians, after they finish their responsibility, they turn back to zero.
They run into redundancy.
Because they become redundant. Yeah, they become redundant. They have been attacked by a lot of causes from those people they've exploited, those people they've finished their life. Next time we'll meet again, we'll be discussing another world within souls of people. This is what we believe in. But this time around, I want to tell you it's going to be far more interesting than the one we have today. See you next time.